Audio unleashed. Let's talk about what we're talking about this week, and we're going to start with one of the biggest kerfuffles in musicdom right now. Man, this is just like an all-out brawl, and so I guess we've got to chime in. So, recently, the New York Times released its 30 best American songwriters, living songwriters, and it garnered some reactions. I mean, Rick Beato had his initial take, which was interesting, but then the New York Times did a response, and basically they justified their reasoning, and that's when things really went to hell. Because I got to say, like, Rick's follow up to that was just one of the most delightfully brutal beatdowns I've witnessed in a long time. But we've got lots of takes. We've got Rick Beato's take. We got Ted Gioia's take, and we've got Brent Mildahl. Is that how you pronounce his name?
He's one of the sort of top jazz-ish piano players of today, and has been for a couple decades.
I just never heard his name pronounced before, so I wasn't sure. But he's got a great take too. Yeah, so we're going to talk about their interpretations, and also some of our feedback too. Like, are you allowed to criticize this article?
The thing is, it's relevant to what we do, because what Rick Beato is criticizing these guys for is exactly what we criticize a lot of audio writers for.
That's a good point. Anyway, after that, what do you want to dig into?
We're going to talk about the emerging field of field coil loudspeakers, which are inspired by an episode of the Hi-Fi 5 where they made this their topic, and they actually had 3 manufacturers of these on there. A field coil loudspeaker is one that, rather than using a permanent magnet, it uses an electromagnet. So you got to plug it into a DC power supply, and then it goes through a coil of wire, and it's got a chunk of metal in there. Just like if you were in school and you took a nail and you wrapped a wire around it and put a battery on it, it magnetizes the nail, right? So these have been kicking around for, it's a thing from like the 20s and 30s, but it has come back, and I think I first saw them reemerge maybe 10 years ago. But it looks like it's becoming a thing purely because, the manufacturers doing this are real, very tiny boutique companies that, you would not have heard of unless you go to a lot of audio shows.
Yeah.
But one of the world's most famous speaker designers, Andrew Jones, has come out with a field coil design. So Andrew Jones, you expect rationality.
Yeah. That's a good point.
You have that luxury with Andrew Jones to expect rationality. And he actually makes, there's a nice video that was done by Jana Dagdagan, I think her name is pronounced. She's been kicking around for 10 years too. She started working for Stereophile and now does her own thing, and sometimes works with John Darko. Anyway, good video. He does a good job of explaining it, but we're going to talk about what other people have said about it and dig into whether or not this thing makes any kind of sense and whether or not people should be interested in it.
I'm going to learn some stuff, man.
Then what's going to happen?
Then we're going to talk about Campfire Audio's new Chimera. A $7,500 in-ear monitor that is, one dynamic, 2 dual diaphragm balanced armatures, 2 standard balanced armatures, 4 electrostatic tweeters, and bone conduction in an IM. It's the last point that I'm actually most interested in. For reasons that I'll explain in the segment, needless to say, I'm probably not going to be buying a $7,500 pair of wired IEMs. But these sort of fascinate me. These are going to be introduced at Singapore Can Jam, which is why they're relevant right now. But equally relevant, and just to provide ballots. It's just, I guess, to balance all of that excess with a bit of value. We're going to be talking about Fosi's new MD3 Mag DAC, which is a little $149 MagSafe amp DAC that you could sort of stick to the back of your iPhone with a magnet, and it's just really interesting. There's a lot of cute functionality in this thing and a lot of interesting functionality. The whole design of it is neat. I gotta admit, I look at this thing and I'm like, why are you selling this for $150, man? They could sell this thing for $450 easily. So it's just
that's what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy here. Just the what's going on at the high end that is potentially interesting, and what's going on at the very, very value-driven end that is, in my opinion, equally interesting, but all headphone related and all relevant to stuff we talk about here all the time on Audio Unleashed. Nice. Anyway, we got to keep our patrons happy too. So what are we going to talk about for them this week?
Once again, we're going to have a back-to-back thing, and it's going to be, last episode we talked about Amir at Audio Science Review was reviewing and criticizing, I don't know what you want to call it, a tweak, a rebuild, a fix, something that was for a pair of speakers that was done by Danny at GR Research. And Amir was very critical of it. And so Danny did an answer video. And so we have like a Drake, Kendrick Lamar kind of thing going on here, except it's with speaker dorks. So,
oh man,
yeah. So it's just basically the same thing. It's just like literally a millionth as much money is at stake.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Danny's rebuttal and what in there was, was anything in there valid? Was anything not valid? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And go deep dive. And a lot of it's going to be about measurements, which I, do.
Before we get there, let's back up and talk about the New York Times and the kerfuffle that they've created with this article, the 30 greatest living American songwriters. So this article, the original article, was published on April 27th. And I have to admit, man, I saw it and I just shrugged. I was like, oh, who cares? I typically just don't. I don't understand the value of these sorts of articles, at least not insofar as how they exist. I mean, I guess if I'm really resonating with somebody who is a music critic, like if Lester Bangs was still around and he did, his list of 30, best American songwriters still alive, I'd be, cool, I'll read that. But just some corporate media thing made by a bunch of corporate media people, obviously driven by, it's just like, it seems to me they were working backwards from their conclusions, right? And a lot of this is driven by, there's certain quotas that they had to hit. It seemed to me quite obvious that they were just desperate to include some hip hop in here. Yeah. In principle, I love that idea, man. I'm just like, oh, hell yeah. But then you read the list and it's like, none of these guys really like hip hop. It's just so obvious that they're just like, they did it for the aura, man. They did it for whatever, political reasons that they have, but it's just, there's no discernment here. There's no there's nothing of value in this article, but I tell you, there's been a lot of value in the backlash to this article.
So we should say this is, the 30 best living American songwriters. So, John Lennon's not in there because he's neither living nor American. Joni Mitchell's not in there because she's not American, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. Anytime you publish these kind of listicles, the best anything, you're going to get a lot of pushback from people. Yeah. And it's just inevitable. And I kind of tend to take them as like, oh, well, that's somebody's point of view. I can consider it or not. And, so I looked over it and kind of like, okay, whatever. And, I don't really read a lot of music criticism except, if it's by a writer I respect, like Tom Conrad, who writes for Stereophile and used to write for Jazz Times. Maybe he does again now that Jazz Times has resurged.
I don't agree with that.
I'm not even close to agreeing with everything Tom says, but his point of view is always interesting to me. And he doesn't know what he's talking about. Anyway, so I'm a musician. I don't need other people to think through music. I do appreciate when other people turn me on to different albums and things like that. And that's good, right? And the value of this article, I guess, is that it may have turned some people on to some songwriters. It may be the person who's like really into Bob Dylan is like looking at this and going, "Oh, Young Thug. Who's he?" Like, I will check out his I'll check out his entire catalog and But anyway, so what did I've been all over this because I'm a giant Rick Beato fan. And what did he think?
Well, Rick Beato actually had 2 videos about this, talking about back-to-back videos. So in the first one, I think he did something. I think he did something that we would have expected. He went, the problem with things like this is like all of the people that you're leaving out and why. And I mean, I thought he had some really, really interesting takes on artists that absolutely should have made the cut. And I agree with him about, right, where the heck is Randy Newman in this list, right? And I would also add, like, where is Lyle Lovett? There's a lot of country music in this list. And, like, in my opinion, few of them have anywhere near the legitimate songwriting chops of Lyle Lovett, who is, in my opinion, one of the greatest singer-songwriters of the past 50 years. But you're always going to end up with omissions like that in lists like this, right? And it was just one of those sort of fleeting things of like, that's the nature of things like this, is you're always going to be, I think, focusing more on what they left off. This didn't become a problem for me until they started trying to justify their picks, right?
Yeah, that's what pushed it over the edge. When they came out with their video trying to justify their picks, and the big point of contention was Billy Joel, right?
Yeah.
I don't even like Billy Joel, but I'll tell you what.
Not a huge fan, but I respect the hell out of him.
Yeah, I didn't respect Billy Joel until I was in a jazz jam session and someone wanted to play Just the Way You Are. I'm like, okay, whatever. And they gave me the chart, and I'm reading through this chart. I'm just like, wow, this guy really knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
This guy's this guy's very sophisticated, very good, great sense of melody. I was like, God, this is good. This is really good. You don't write a song like that without being pretty great. And I would argue that, the guy Joe Caramonica, comes up with his sort of really bogus reasons for not having Billy Joel in there. Very strange justifications.
Right, because in his opinion, Billy Joel only writes maybe 1.5 kind of different song. And it is just... that is preposterous on the face of it,
Billy Joel, people hate him because he doesn't settle down to one style.
Right, And that whole argument, he also basically made the point that, Billy Joel wasn't doing anything that anybody before him hadn't already done. Basically, his point that was Billy Joel wasn't original. He was just regurgitating or whatever. He didn't innovate, just sort of like doing a really good job of 1.5 types of different song. But if you take that argument at face value, then in my opinion, there's very little justification for almost anybody that they included in the hip hop domain.
Right.
Here.
Yeah.
Because they didn't include Q-Tip. And if you're going to do a list of the 30 greatest living American songwriters, and you're going to promote hip hop, which in my opinion, the way it should be promoted, because it is a legitimate art form, and you're not going to include Q-Tip on that list when basically everybody else on this list was influenced by Q-Tip in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
you're giving lie to your whole argument against including Billy Joel. It's just goes to show that just the ideological and intellectual inconsistency here that gives away the whole game, in my opinion.
This is what I encountered. I was a copy chief at Spin Magazine for about a year, and this is what I encountered there. I was supposed to be. They had hired me and said, "Okay, you're going to be the copy chief, but you're also going to be an editor, and you're going to work on our whatever coverage." And I was in one editorial meeting, and I was like, "Screw this." I really don't want, because music is a great passion for me. And I realized, like, okay, these people are like not, I shouldn't say, there was a guy named John Leland who I did respect. And they had a woman named Karen Schomer. She was pretty good too. And, but it was like, people hiring their college buddies to write for them, and people who really didn't, for the most part, didn't know a whole lot about music, but they could string together a good sentence, and they had opinions, and that's what most music critics are. And that's also what most audio writers are, because you look at these writers that Rick Beato is criticizing. These are people that don't have any education in the field that they claim to be an expert in. And as almost no audio writers have that either. If you look at the absolute sound, it's like those people have been messing around casually with audio for decades, but could any of them like draw an amplifier schematic? Have any of them done a significant amount of blind testing? Are any of them AES members? Are any of them really familiar with this? Do they have more than a passing familiarity with audio science? No. They just don't. They just have opinions, and they can put together a sentence on a deadline. And, I had a thing when I was at Video Magazine a long time ago, and I was building Who I Am, and I saw it. I think it was in the Village Voice. They had a book review of some guy, and he was saying, if you're going to write about something and expect people to read it, you really owe it to your readers to dig as deep into it as you can and really internalize it and put a lot of thought into it and understand what you're writing about. And I printed that up. I printed it and taped it to my old CRT computer monitor up to the top. And I had that there for years. And, every time I was like, I'm just going to do something lightweight, I'd look at that and go, no, dig into it. And, look, I just have to confess that I've never liked music critics, with very few exceptions. And, just because I've always been a musician, kind of my whole life, almost my whole life. And I realized even when I was 15 years old trying to figure out how to play guitar, I was kind of like, these guys kind of don't get, there's a lot they don't get. And a lot, and there are some that really knew their stuff. Right. But so many of the people that wrote for like Circus magazine. I read Circus, I'll confess. And
I did too.
And but the people that wrote for that were kind of like it's a lot of people with creative writing degrees. And which is fine, but that doesn't make you an expert on anything unless you dig into it. Now, if they dug into it, as say, when I was talking about Karen Schomer at Spin Magazine, I actually took the trouble to look her up. Like, what is she doing now? Because I remember when I was there, she wrote the liner notes to the Steve Earle's first greatest hits album and stuff. And the liner notes were really good. Like, she got it. But Karen Schomer actually looked it up. She's a musical artist now. She just did an album with Mike Watt.
Yeah.
And, she does like her poetry set to music and stuff. It's like, oh, wow, she's actually doing this stuff. And so you could do this. You could have a creative writing degree and actually take the trouble to learn. I knew something about electronics when I got into this, but I had a journalism degree. But I dug into it. Aaron's like that. People that really dug in deep to this stuff and spent the time, as opposed to just sitting around in their underwear listening to tube amps and opining about them, as we say a lot here on audio.
Unleashed.
That's our signature thing.
I want to read a little an excellent point that I thought Ted Gioia made in his response to this. In a curious coincidence, I had just published an article in Music Criticism the day before the Times released this video. In this article, entitled 9 Rules of Music Criticism, I made this claim. trust your emotional response to creative work and be wary of critical stances that run counter to how it actually makes you feel. Be wary of any critic who doesn't seem to care about your enjoyment of the music or other art forms. I'm not saying that the critic needs to agree with your responses, but a clear hostility to enjoyment and doctrinaire disregard of our emotional response to a work is a huge warning sign. And to me, that is just like underlined, italicized, bold with an exclamation point after it, because it wasn't so much that this guy was like, I just don't like Billy Joel. And it wasn't so much that he was making legitimate cases for leaving him off the list, because I'm fine with him not being on the list. Again, no matter how much I respect Billy Joel, it's just not on my favorites list, whatever. Yeah. So, but the way he mockingly like, oh, like, how dare you like Billy Joel? Like, you're just an uncouth, uncultured idiot if you like Billy Joel. And it's, if people love Billy Joel that much, he's obviously doing something for them that matters to them. And you can disagree with it. You can pick it apart. You can explain why it doesn't work for you. But to mock that person for liking Billy Joel is, to me, giving away the whole game.
Okay, but I have another comment from Brad Meldow that kind of changes my whole perspective here. And he basically says, they're taking him with pop music as a cultural phenomenon, not as a musical phenomenon.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That is accurate. And that's what, people get so wrapped up in culture, which is kind of shallow. And, it's like things that have a big cultural impact. That's what people talk about. That's what people probably want to read about. It doesn't have anything to do with music. And it's almost, like we are with politics now. So much of it is cultural, no one analyzes policy anymore.
Yeah.
It's all just cultural stuff. And it's like, which is team sports. It's just the same crap.
Yep.
And this is sort of a little bit of maybe a team sports approach to music writing. Just as audio writing, I keep coming back to audio writing, and audio writing is team sports also, as we're going to talk about shortly. But it's team sports. It's like, do you believe that cables make a difference? Are you on team cable? Are you on team cable lifters? Are you? And it becomes this sides thing.
I just wrote an article. I've been talking a lot with Ron of the Hi-Fi 5, and he had wanted me to come to this episode, sort of bridging the subjective objective divide, and I wasn't able to because of family health stuff and everything like that. But I've been thinking about it a lot recently, and the article that I've got coming up for Soundstage next month is talking about the concept of schismogenesis. I just finished David Graeber's final book, The Dawn of Everything, and I've always been familiar with the concept of schismogenesis, and that people define themselves not by their own intrinsic interests, but in opposition to other people. Like, in other words, what makes English people English in their own eyes is the fact that, well, we're not the French, right? And I mean, really, it's and Graeber and his co-author David Wengrow really dig in. It's a concept that's always been like, well, yeah, that's so obviously true that it has no worth, right? But they really dig into it in such a way that it's like, oh, this has explanatory power. For the first time, I'm taking this concept seriously. And I really think you're right. I really think it is just, we've gotten to the point to where we're defining ourselves not so much by what we see value in. It's like, those people over there are stupid, so whatever they're into, I am into the opposite, right?
Yeah.
And
so wait, can I? Am I editing this thing?
Yeah, you're editing this one.
All right, cut it off. Let's go to the next segment.
Okay. All right.
I'm taking charge this episode. I usually let you take charge of everything, but I'm taking charge since I'm editing.
All right, take charge. Well, get us out of this segment into the next one then, man.
Okay, so we'll be right back after we play some weird music, and we'll talk about field coil loudspeakers.
Let's do it. We'll be right back, y'all.
And we're back. This is Audio
Unleashed.
And we're going to talk about the hottest topic in audio, which is field coil loudspeakers, which we probably wouldn't talk about except for the fact that the Hi-Fi 5, a YouTube channel that we've both been on, had a whole episode devoted to field coil loudspeakers. And a field coil loudspeaker is one that uses, instead of using a permanent magnet, just chunk of some kind of metal that's magnetized, uses an electromagnet, right? So you have an electromagnet, you have a coil in there, you have a chunk of metal, and then your speaker's voice coil goes over that, right? So the speaker's still basically working the same way.
And it just means your speaker's got a power supply now. So,
a lot of them do nowadays. A lot of them are powered. Anyway, I first saw this probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago. I can't remember. It's some audio show. I'm kind of like, oh, that's quaint. And because I was dimly aware as a child, I think I had seen one of these when I was a kid. The reason they originally had them was because magnet technology in the 20s and 30s and stuff was really primitive. And it was easier and cheaper for them back then, to get a sufficiently strong magnet to just do an electromagnet, right?
Right.
Eventually, though, permanent magnet technology evolved and they came up with metal combinations that were really good at being magnetized, like alnico. Later on, neodymium, right?
Yeah.
But as always happens in high-end audio, somebody has to go back to 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 years ago and say, oh, that was better.
Yeah.
That old way of doing it, that was actually better, and all this newfangled stuff is bad. And I probably still would have ignored it, except for the fact that Andrew Jones, who might well be the most famous speaker designer alive right now, a guy who's worked for, I don't know if he started with Kef, but I became aware of him when he was at Kef. He went to, I think he might have briefly worked for Harman back when Laurie Fincham worked there.
Oh, did he?
It's possible. It's possible. I don't know for sure. But then Andrew went to Pioneer and started doing Pioneer stuff. And kind of that's where he really became famous, because he made really expensive TAD speakers, which was an offshoot of Pioneer, and also made really good, like $60 repair speakers in the same lab. I went to the lab. Anyway, so, and Andrew has a reputation for being no-nonsense speaker designer. I mean, he's got his own things he does and everything, but believe me, there's nobody in the business that disparages what Andrew Jones does. He is really well respected. Yeah. I was watching this Hi-Fi 5 thing. So they featured Frank Doris, who's one of our old pals from forever ago, who's done PR and also worked for the Absolute Sound. Ken Songer of Songer Audio, which makes field coil loudspeakers. Rich, I don't know Rich's last name, at Treehouse Audio, which makes also field coil speakers, which Rich are like Pinto. Which are funky things made with, like, it's easier just to go look at it than have me describe it. They're very funky. And Peter Quattrop, who has been a punching bag for me, when I was editing/writing Soundstage Experience, I did an article because I think Part-Time Audiophile featured him and did this sort of fawning interview. And this is a guy who basically says, loudspeaker design was, peaked in the 1940s. And, recording quality peaked in the 1950s. And just preposterous, pompous, ridiculous things. And audio writers like, oh, wow, he's such an iconoclast and blah, blah. It's like, and he's like, he doesn't understand why we measure speakers. It's like, you can find this out in like 2 minutes, but no. Anyway, so all these guys who make these field coil loudspeakers are on with Ron Resnick, who's the host, of course. And this guy, Ken Songer, I don't think I've heard his speakers before. I might have. He makes probably the best point. He was the only one that really made a point that I totally agreed with. And he basically said, look, you can have a field coil loudspeaker, and we do, and we believe in that. But if the rest of the speaker isn't well designed, it doesn't matter what kind of magnet it has. The rest of the speaker has to be well designed. Now, sadly, he is one of these people that makes these speakers with full range drivers like we talked about in the last episode.
Yeah.
So it's like his speakers are not flat, and they are not even close to flat, and they have messed up dispersion and all that kind of stuff. And I guess some people like them, obviously, but these speakers are substantially changing the sound.
Right.
This is not what the artist intended. Okay. Because what the artist intends is something close to what they heard in the studio. This is not what the artist heard in the studio. Not even close.
Correct.
So, and we can prove that with measurements, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, but that was smart. I was like, you know what? I can get with this guy. And, I probably wouldn't hate his speakers. Maybe I haven't heard a lot of these things I liked, but, could be a good vibe. They look nicely made, and they're not like insanely, I think they were pretty pricey, actually, now that I think about it. But I'm still sitting here, I'm watching Hi-Fi 5, and I'm like, I still don't really understand why they're doing this. And they're talking about how you can, with an electromagnet, you can make it stronger than a permanent magnet. Sure. Okay, that could have value. That'll increase the sensitivity of the speaker if you need to do that. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, of course, these days think that, high sensitivity speakers with low powered amplifiers are the way to go and whatever.
Right. For reasons.
Yeah. The unwashed masses use high powered amps and low sensitivity speakers. And all the sellouts like, Harman do that. People, So anyway, they pointed out, Andrew Jones is doing this. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that. I haven't seen it. I haven't been to an audio show in years, and I haven't seen Andrew in years. But I went looking for this, and I found that Jana Dagdagan, I really hope I'm pronouncing her name right. I met her once in passing years and years ago. She worked for Stereophile, and she works with John Darko, like producing his videos and stuff, and has her own channel, Jana Hart Hi-Fi. Yeah. And anyway, she did a really nice video with Andrew where, he's involved in a new company now, Jones and Soretta. So the brothers Soretta he's involved with, who I think are music industry guys. And he started this new company. He's also designing speakers for Mobile Fidelity and stuff. And, he goes into why he chose to use field coil for this. And, I got to say that Andrew probably looked at this and said, people are really into this high sensitivity stuff. And, and they're into this retro technology. So I should probably make something like this, but make it work, because I have complete faith that he made it work and his speakers sound really good. So he's got this big speaker called the Troubadour, which is a pretty big, chunky, blocky looking thing that has a coaxial driver in it with a tweeter inside the woofer, and it's field coil. I guess there are field coils for both drivers. Then there's a conventional woofer down below it. So there's field coils for both drivers. They're big. It's like the jumbo size Folgers coffee cans on the back of there. If you remember those, do they even have coffee cans anymore?
Well, I mean, I think anybody who's seen The Big Lebowski is certainly familiar because, that's what they spread Donnie's ashes in.
Yeah. It just makes me realize, like, we don't have coffee cans anymore. This is sad. But, so anyway, there's a big thing. And he talks about how, the heat that is the magnet being a coil, as anyone who in like third grade made an electromagnet with a nail and a coil of wire can tell you, it gets hot. And you have to somehow ventilate them. There are different ways you can do that. And if you want to do a sealed speaker, though, it's going to get more challenging. Mm-hmm. But, it can be, as all these guys say here, they're like, yeah, hey, look, it's an issue, but it's just something you have to think about. And if you think about it, it won't be a problem. Right. But anyway, Andrew talks about how, you get more sensitivity out of the speaker, and a lot of people like that. My take on this is, though, because this is what you've been waiting for. This is what everyone's been waiting for, is my take on this, right?
Yeah.
And since I'm the speaker geek here, as so often in audio, you can have these things that people do. And for example, you can do like a fully regulated power supply on an amplifier. Fine, but there's things that you could do to the amplifier that would make a bigger difference that are cheaper or the same price, right?
Yeah.
You're spending a certain amount of money on this product. And whether or not doing a field coil is the most cost-effective way to improve the sound quality is the big question. And they kind of nip around that a little bit.
Yeah.
I think Andrew mentioned it once, and this gets not ignored, but also not really discussed too much. But that's the whole thing is like, okay, let's say you have a $20,000 speaker and you're like, you know what? I want to make the speaker even better. Well, you can spend a couple thousand putting field coils on it, and which means you have to have a power supply, right? Which is a DC power supply, which is, just more or less the same as the power supply you find in an amplifier. And it has to be a clean supply because if there's any ripple or hum in it, that's going to come through the speaker, right? It's got to be a really good supply. Songer charges like a couple $1,000 for one of their supplies. Okay. They include them with the speaker, but you can also get them separately.
Right.
So you're adding, you're like at $20,000 or something. You're like, okay, we want to do even better. Let's spend $5,000 more. We think our dealers are telling us that, they think they can sell a $25,000 speaker. Let's say we have $2,000 to spend there, counting dealer margins and all that junk. Is the best way to spend $2,000? Is that to put a better tweeter in there? Is that to put a second tweeter? Is that to put a driver on the back? Is it to put a better woofer in there? Or is it to put a field coil in there?
Yeah, but sometimes doing the logical thing doesn't give you a marketing bullet point, though.
Well, absolutely.
Point of differentiation doesn't give you a way of saying, oh, the others, they're not doing it right, but we've got this secret. We're the only ones doing it this way,
Yeah, and it's marketable. You're 100% right. Whereas if you said, oh, we have a higher excursion woofer, people are like, is it good? Is it bad? I don't know.
Yeah.
Whereas if you say, oh, we have a field coil, we don't have those crappy permanent magnets. We have field coils. Oh, wow. Oh, it's field coil. And then you can say to your buddies in the Audiophile Society, oh, I have field coil speakers.
Right.
So, and believe me, your buddies in the Audiophile Society are going to be very curious to hear your field coil loudspeakers. And the good thing about this is, other than the heat generated and the cost, there's no downside to it. It's not one of these dumb things like single-ended triode tube amps. It's a dumb thing. They don't have any power unless you get one of these really exotic ones that are very expensive. But it's like you don't have any power. You've got a high output impedance. You got a lot of problems with it, and it's basically a bad idea. I mean, people still like it. Fine, whatever turns you on, But it's a bad idea. This is not a bad idea. There's nothing wrong with this at all.
It seems to me like, and this may seem contradictory because, I'm a big fan of active powered loudspeakers. And I'll admit that there are downsides to those. If the amps go bad or whatever, you throw the whole thing out and you have to replace it entirely. Probably. Whereas if you're using a passive system and you've got, an integrated amp or something like that, well, if the integrated amp goes bad or if new technologies develop, whatever, you're only replacing one component. But then again, I mean, it seems to me that like the advantages of active powered loudspeakers are enough to counterbalance that downside, right? Whereas with, if you're going with an entirely passive system with an integrated amp or separates or whatever, there are disadvantages there, but the advantages outweigh the downsides. With the field coils, I'm struggling. I'm not saying there's not an answer. I'm just saying I'm struggling to come up with the answer of, well, like, what advantages does it give you that outweigh the downsides that come with the repairability problems, the expense problems, the complication problems? What are you getting for the extra hassle? And I could argue with active powered speakers, you're getting something in exchange for the downsides. There's an optimization there. But with the field coils, I'm still struggling to see, like, what's the optimization?
I'm looking on DIY Audio, and they had we'll put in a link to this. They had a pretty good discussion of it on there. They talked about, this is so funny. They talked about the use of humbucking coils in there, sort of like on a Les Paul, to actually get rid of any hum that your amplifier creates or that your power supply creates. But the point that they make in here is, look, it's at the end of the day, it's a magnet. If the electromagnet is the same power as the permanent magnet, they will sound exactly the same. And assuming the electromagnet is, has a good clean power supply, et cetera, right? But but again, you can get more power out of a field coil, I guess, than a permanent magnet, or at least more power out of the same size thing. So, and then you don't have the rare earths problem.
It's a good point. It's a really good point.
I guess they can probably use like an iron core. I can't remember. Or maybe they use a nail like I did in church. Big nail. And, so you do have the rare earths issue, which, granted, if China decides to not sell us rare earths anymore, you're going to see a lot more field coils.
Yeah.
I want a Bluetooth speaker with field coil speakers. That battery will run down pretty fast.
Yeah, it would.
But it's funny to think about.
I'm not convinced yet, but I'm not saying I'm not convinced. And the fact that Andrew's doing it, like I said, I hate appeals to authority so bad, but I got to admit, the fact that Andrew's doing it at least makes me go, okay. Yeah, I need to give this maybe a little bit more credence. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, that's another problem, is that so many of the people doing this are the people that are doing really exotic audio that deviates substantially from linearity. Let's just put it to you that way. And, so you can't really judge it based on some guys doing it with a single driver speaker. You have to judge it on somebody who is a science guy who is going to take this technology and harness it and use it to build a good speaker.
Anything else you want to say about this one before we go talk about Campfire audio?
No, I want to talk about Campfire audio right now.
Yeah. All right. We'll be right back, y'all. And welcome back. This is once again Audio Unleashed. Nice. A little bit of cupped hands distortion there. Not so much relevant to our next segment, though, because we're talking about in-ears, not speakers. As I said in the intro, we've got a new in-ear monitor from Campfire Audio. It's called the Chimera. It is $7,500. It is a 9-driver design. Interestingly enough, it's got, let's see, what's all the specs here? It has got one dynamic, or this is per channel, yes, one dynamic, 2 dual diaphragm balanced armatures, 2 standard balanced armatures, 4 electrostatic tweeters, and bone conduction, which that's the thing. Interestingly enough, that's the thing that made me go, huh? I'm intrigued. Let's talk more. Not sure it's worth $7,500, but I like bone conduction, and I want to hear your thoughts on bone conduction. But interestingly enough, we got a little bit of a counterweight here too, talking about the extreme ends of the personal audio market. In addition to that, we've got this cute little new MagDAC MD3 from Fosi Audio for $149. That is just look, this thing is not for me. I'm just going to come right out and say it. This is not a product that I need, but I kind of wish I did because it is adorable and it is interesting and it is, damn, it is a lot of value for the money, in my opinion. Like if you're needing this kind of thing, this is just like, oh yeah, just buy this. This just makes no, like, why are we talking about it? Just buy this thing.
Yeah. So on the bone conduction, I'm going to say that all in-ear monitors rely to some extent on bone conduction.
Oh,
to produce bass. So I've been told.
Oh, yeah.
And that makes a certain amount of sense. But this has an actual bone conduction thing, like that's in your swimming headphones, I think, right?
Yeah. So I wear swimming headphones every day when I swim and listen to, a lot of people are utterly fascinated by them because they're like, wait, it's sitting on your cheeks and you're listening to it? Is it going through the water? And I'm like, no, it's going, well, I mean, kind of going through the water, but mostly going through my bones. And people are just utterly fascinated by that. So,
because you're not going to get a lot of, in-ear monitors are not going to move a lot of air.
Mm-mm.
So, or hair.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So you need the bone conduction to go into your into your bones to get to actually get the sound into your cochlea and all that kind of junk, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I gotta say this is a if anybody actually cares what their earphones look like, this is a beautiful product.
Gorgeous.
It looks like what they do is they put together a whole bunch of thin layers of sheet metal alternating between black and brass, and then they machine it out. So it looks like one of those like
Damascus steel. Yeah, Damascus steel is kind of what I was thinking of. Yeah.
So they actually refer to it as Damascus lid.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It's carbon fiber and brass layered.
Interesting.
And then machined. It's standard 2-pin connector, so you you can make it Bluetooth if you want, or you can use it with whatever cable. They have a fancy ALO audio cable that they supply with it. This is one of the kind of products that we look at. We're like, I'd love to hear that thing. I don't think I want to buy it. I don't have an outlet to review it. I mean, if I was still working for Soundstage, I'd review it in a heartbeat. I would happily drive down to Portland, bring my measurement gear, measure it, listen to it, write about it, drive back up. Also, Portland's a pleasant place to go. Anyway.
I got questions for you, bud.
Yeah.
I understand, and I've experienced sort of what I would consider to be the advantages of hybrid in-ear monitor design using dynamic drivers for the bass, balanced armatures for the mids and highs, or highs, what have you. The one thing that I've never really experienced the benefit of is just the crazy number of drivers. Is there really any benefit to it? Like once you get up to 5 drivers, I'm like, is that really any better than 3? And I'm looking at this like 9 drivers. Is there really any advantage of 9 over, 7 or 5 or what have you? Have you run into cases where you're like, yeah, this thing needed, 7 drivers or what have you? Or is it just another one of those things where it's like, well, they've got to market it somehow?
It's both, actually.
Okay.
So with a lot of these things, marry a dynamic driver for the bass to balanced armatures, right?
Yeah.
And the balanced armatures don't have anywhere near the output of the dynamic driver. And so they put in multiple balanced armatures. Right. And, then they can put in, if they want to tailor the sound more, this does give them the opportunity to tailor the sound by, most of these things are going to have a little tiny crossover in there. And, they can adjust the sound in ways that are more precise than you could acoustically. And or potentially more precise, not necessarily more precise, but potentially more precise. So I remember the AKG N5005 was the first earphone to really, actually I think it was the first product period to really nail Harman curve because it had 5 drivers, and so they could really fine tune it in a way they couldn't with a single headphone driver.
Yeah.
So there are benefits to it. It's not necessarily better, but it does give the designers more flexibility. It has potentially better sound quality, just as you would with a speaker. For small driver is better at high frequencies than a large driver.
Yeah.
And this lets them do the Oh, they do call them electrostatic, but they're not electrostatic like it needs power. They're electrostatic because, like Martin Logan speakers need a bias voltage. These are like electric condenser microphones, right? Which don't need, a regular condenser microphone needs a bias voltage, whereas a electric condenser microphone is prepolarized, right?
Yeah.
So this is like that. So you don't have to run 600 volts into your ear.
Oh, I just understood the quad-brid thing, buddy. I just understood the quad-brid thing. So it's a play on hybrid. I just realized when I was talking about hybrid design with, dynamic and balanced armatures, this is a quad-brid design because it's 4 different types of drivers. It's the bone conduction, it's the dynamic, it's the balanced armatures, and it's the electrostatic. So it's 4 types of drivers is quad-brid.
Got it. Well, we love good marketing like that here on Audio
Unleashed.
But speaking of marketing, there's a product that we also saw that was also introduced at the Singapore Can Jam show. And it is, I think, more relevant to us. And it's actually, as a marketing coup, it's pretty awesome, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is the Fosi Audio
MD3 Mag DAC.
Yeah. So it's a headphone amplifier DAC that attaches to the back of your phone magnetically. It's $150, which is, as a dongle thing, is pretty affordable. There's $300, $400 ones that are just plain old dongles.
Yeah.
This thing has a 3.5 millimeter unbalanced output. It's got a 4.4 millimeter Pentacon balanced output, and it just snaps onto the back of your phone. And one thing they don't show, sadly, is all the photos of it show just the product on the back of your phone, but of course it needs to have a cable.
Right.
So it needs to have a USB-C cable to connect this thing to the phone. Oh, okay, fine. But it's a DAC, right? It's kind of like, it's fine. I mean, I test them for Wirecutter, and I think pretty much all of them have flat frequency response. I mean, a lot of them have a lot more power than others, right? Which, if you're driving in-ear monitors, is not a problem. If you're going to drive some big hi-fi man planers, well, maybe it's a problem. Yeah. So I didn't see that they had a power spec on this thing, but I will probably end up testing it.
It's greater than or equal to 80 milliwatts per channel into 32 ohms, and that's by the 3.5 millimeter. And then by the 4.4, it's greater than or equal to 180 milliwatts by 2 into 32 ohms.
Okay, so it's not bad. It won't power anything exotic, but it'll be fine with, Sennheiser 650s or something like that. But the one thing that affects the sound quality of this is it does have a 100-step volume control, and it actually has it has an indicator. It has like a little LCD display, a little round LCD display that's 1.25 inches across. And you can adjust the volume, and you can actually see the indicator. It looks like a VU meter, so you would automatically buy this. And and it also shows you your sampling rate of your incoming audio, and it's compatible with DSD, and it's compatible, I think it's 32/384 digital. And but the most distinctive thing, though, is that display, because that display will let you show adorable animations of little animals.
Yeah. And like there's a panda bear. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Like why
there's a panda wearing headphones.
A panda wearing headphones. There's a kitten kicking a soccer ball.
Yeah. There's a chubby beaver. The chubby beaver is doing karaoke.
Yes. I mean, why wouldn't you want that? Why wouldn't you want? Brent Butterworth. Hang on. Just hold the phone. There's a freaking capybara. That's it. End of story. They don't need anything else but the capybara. Everything else is redundant. Wait, no, there's a corgi too. So I take it back.
The corgi is sort of sitting there. The corgi's sort of sitting there staring at the phone like, The corgi doesn't look. He looks like he's touched, but not by an angel.
Oh man! But the little capybara is just eating grass and vegging on his big old belly. This is just the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life, man.
I love this also because it has the display also can be used for a spin the bottle game or a dice roll or rock, paper, scissors. And
Yeah.
And so it adds a playful touch. Take a lighthearted break anytime, anywhere, right alongside your music. It makes me feel like, wow, if I was like a busy executive or not a busy executive, but like a busy low-level marketing drone in Shenzhen or something, and I could sit there, eating my whatever on the sidewalk and, in between, because they do like, what is it? 12. They work like 12 hours a day. And it's like a cultural thing. But like, I guess you could probably take a break anywhere and do the spin the bottle. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that. Or rock, paper, scissors,
Why would you do any of that when there's a capybara right there?
Right. But,
I don't do it.
You're just going to watch the capybara eat some grass. And
yes. Yeah.
But it's a neat product.
For me.
Like I'm gonna review this for sure, and it's got a dedicated button for you to flip all the different visual images on here, and it's got volume controls and stuff. It's got normal things, and I kind of I really like. I mean, certainly, I've reviewed most of these things because I just get tons. I just measure them, right, and I measure them and use them. I don't try to figure out which one is the most inner detail. But a lot of what, so I basically rank them by output and design and price. And this thing is reasonably priced. The output looks okay. More than a lot of the dongles, but not as much as like the i5 or EFI or whatever things that are like 300 or 400 megawatts or milliwatts, not megawatts. That'd be a trick.
There's not a radio station here.
Yeah, but it's really a neat product. It's about a half an inch thick, which is a little bit of a problem.
Here's the real question I have: is anybody going to plug the Campfire Chimera into this Fosi Audio MD3?
Well, if I test this for Wirecutter, which I will if they assign me an update of that guide before I retire, it's possible. And also if Audio Express asks me to review the Chimera, which by the way, I'm going to pitch anyway. I would definitely like drive down because I can go visit Van Stickus and I can go have a nice trip out of it and it's all deductible. And,
nice.
It'd be a kick. And, I can listen to the Campfire thing with this and it would be all good. They'll probably want me to listen to it with like a $10,000 amp. And, I can understand that, but that would be cool if I, as my career just really, augers into the ground.
That's your swan song, huh?
It would be cool to do a $7,500 earphone. I would love that. Oh, that'd be so awesome.
Yeah. So I think though we're giving away our game a little bit here because we're teaching manufacturers the way to pander to us is with capybaras and otters.
I like the chubby beaver.
Oh, that's right. That's a beaver, not an otter. But yeah, okay. You want to pander to us capybaras and beavers, man. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I'm going to say it this week. This is a Butterburger production. This means it's me and you producing it. But who's editing and mixing and mastering and all of this?
Me.
Yeah, that's you. So, I don't know, man. Anything else you want to do by way of credits? Anything anybody you want to shout out?
Nah. But if someone wants to hip us, wait, we already figured out the brid thing. Okay,
that's
quad-brid.
True.
And so I don't think although we're always open to, listeners that want to point out flaws in our reasoning, point out factual errors, point out differences of opinion with us, point out whatever you feel like pointing out. Let us know. We love to, no matter what you say, we love hearing back from our listeners.
Heck yeah, man. All right. Well, everybody, we appreciate each and every one of you, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. But patrons, stick around. We got one more for you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
hey, thanks for sticking around to the end. If you liked what you heard and wish there'd been a little bit more of it, we got some good news for you.
Indeed, we do. If you check out patreon.com/Audio Unleashed, all one word, you can get new episodes a little earlier than everybody else.
And sometimes it's like a day or two early. Sometimes it's nearly a week. We never really know until we start editing.
But the big plus is that you get extended cuts of every episode. And usually that's going to mean a whole extra segment that's about maybe a geekier topic or something that's a little more personal to us or something that's just going to really appeal to the hardcore Audio Unleashed listener.
Yeah, what it boils down to is if you're somebody who would support Audio Unleashed on Patreon, we're going to make sure the bonuses to every episode are really aimed straight at your interests.
Yeah. And so if you want to hear these segments, you can subscribe to our Patreon for $3 a month, which is less than I spend every single day on my cup of coffee when I go to Starbucks to write my boring articles.
Yeah. One more time with that URL, that's patreon.com/Audio Unleashed.
Or Audio
Unleashed. Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.